My mom labeled me the dumb one. Then tried. My mother decided who I was before I ever opened my eyes. She said she could tell everything about a child from the way they entered the world. Natalie came out quiet, staring at the room like she already had answers, so Mom crowned her the smart one. Eden's cheeks were delicate, even as a newborn, so she became the pretty one. Miles screamed with lungs like a bull, making him the strong one. And me, I was last tiny, fighting for air with tubes shoved down my throat. Mom smiled like she had solved a riddle and whispered my sentence, the dumb one. She never took it back. Not once. Dad tried. I remember the sound of him shouting, saying, "They're just kids, stop labeling them like animals." But Mom was stubborn, and Dad was a man who hated confrontation. By the time I was 4, he was gone. Our absence in family photos explained away by Mom's phrase, "He didn't fit the ecosystem." That was her word, ecosystem. She used it like scripture. Our survival depended on balance, she said. Smart, pretty, strong, dumb. Each role locked like cages, and any attempt to slip out was unnatural, punishable. When Natalie struggled with her homework, I offered to help once. I was 8. She had her pencil pressed too hard against the page, and I whispered the answer, proud of myself for knowing. Mom's hand came down on the back of my neck so hard my chin slammed into the table. Dumb ones don't understand math. My ears rang for hours. When I started growing taller than Eden, Mom forced me to hunch. The dumb one shouldn't loom over the pretty one, she said. I learned to fold myself small until my spine bent a curve that followed me like a scar into adulthood. She yanked me out of school in 3rd grade. Not because I was failing, quite the opposite. I'd been reading ahead, sneaking into Natalie's books. That terrified her. Curiosity doesn't suit you, she said, announcing to neighbors I had a severe learning disability. The pills started soon after. White tablets that made my head heavy, my tongue thick. She told everyone they were medicine. For me, they were shackles disguised as capsules. We all had our shackles. Eden fainted from the diets Mom forced the pretty one never allowed to be bigger than a hanger. Miles lifted weights from the age of 6 until his joints cracked and his fingers swelled. Natalie's drawings, beautiful detailed sketches, went up in smoke in our backyard barrel whenever Mom caught her. The smart one doesn't waste time with art, she'd say, watching ash drift into the sky. But she underestimated one thing: siblings under siege become soldiers. We invented a secret language: blinks, coughs, knocks on the bedroom wall. Natalie taught me fractions under her blanket with a flashlight, while Eden stood guard at the door. Miles smuggled me small dumbbells, pretending to chase me from his workouts. It was survival disguised as rebellion. And for years, it kept us alive. Our first attempt at escape was when I turned 15. Miles had been sneaking money from odd jobs, stashing bills in his shoes. We planned to meet at the train station after midnight. He was supposed to carry me on his back if my legs gave out. But Mom had trackers in our phones. She appeared out of the shadows like a warden catching prisoners. The punishment was precise, tailored. Miles carried 100-pound bags until his back screamed. Natalie solved equations for 16 hours straight until she collapsed. Eden stood in front of a mirror for days, listing every flaw until her voice broke. Me, I wrote, "I am too stupid to think for myself" 10,000 times. My hand cramped into claws, ink smeared like blood across my pages. After that, Mom moved us to the farmhouse. She told the world we died in a fire. No visitors. No questions. Just fields stretching like an ocean of silence. Years blurred there, meals rationed, punishments rotating like seasons. But in the cracks, we found ways to breathe. I discovered online courses, pretending to look at picture books, while Natalie staged math crises to distract Mom. Eden deliberately broke mirrors so I could sneak onto the library computer during repair trips. Miles faked sprains, forcing Mom to hover over him while I studied. With their sacrifices, I finished my GED in secret. One stolen hour at a time, I clawed back the intelligence Mom swore I never had. And then the letter. A plain envelope from State University. Miles pulled it from the P.O. box with trembling hands. Inside my acceptance, proof I wasn't dumb. Proof I could escape. We cried together in the barn, tears soaking into hay. For one fragile week, we planned. My siblings rehearsed distractions. Natalie would fake a seizure, Eden would threaten her own reflection. Miles would smuggle me out in his truck. I remember lying awake that week, heart hammering in my chest. For the first time, I let myself imagine something different, sitting in a classroom, raising my hand without fear. Having a name that wasn't dumb. The plan worked. For a week, I lived in a dorm, walked to classes, introduced myself simply as Laya. No roles, no shackles. But freedom was a fragile thing. And Mom was already sharpening her knives, because she called calm, controlled. That dangerous tone I knew too well. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? And when Miles appeared in my doorway, shoulders slumped, eyes full of guilt, with Mom standing behind him, holding a medical bag, my breath turned to ice. Her words still haunt me. We need to fix that overactive brain permanently. Don't worry, sweetie. You won't even remember wanting to be anything but dumb once we're done scooping out the problem areas. That was the night my life split into before and after. The syringe glinted under the cheap dorm light, its needlepoint trembling inches from my arm. I couldn't move. My own brother's hands pinned mine behind my back, and my mother's calm voice filled the air like a lullaby turned grotesque. Don't worry, sweetie. You won't even remember wanting to be smart once we're done. I wanted to scream, but my voice wouldn't work. My teeth chattered like I was freezing, though sweat poured down my back. For a split second, I saw my whole life funneling into that sharp tip. Every lesson, every midnight study session, every secret plan erased. Then the banging started. The dorm door shook on its hinges, and Mom jerked the needle back, shoving it into her bag. Miles's grip faltered. When the door flew open, Officer Kia Nash stepped in hand, hovering over her radio. Her eyes swept the scene, my arms wrenched behind me, Mom's medical bag, my face wet with silent tears. What the hell is going on here? Nash demanded. Mom flipped instantly into her doctor's voice. Smooth clinical, the mask she wore for outsiders. My daughter is unwell, she said. She's delusional. I was just administering medication for her condition. My son was helping restrain her. Nash's gaze cut to me. She saw the red marks on my arms, the fear in my eyes. Her jaw tightened. Step away from her. Now. Miles dropped his hands like they were burning him. I stumbled back, nearly collapsing, and Nash caught me by the elbow, steadying me. She positioned herself between me and my family like a wall. I finally forced words out, broken and stuttering. Syringe. She had a syringe. Nash's eyes flicked to the bag. What's in there? Medication for her condition? Mom repeated that eerie calm, never slipping. Open it. Mom hesitated. That was enough. Nash radioed for backup, her voice firm, clipped, possible assault. Need assistance now. 2 more guards arrived within minutes, and suddenly Mom wasn't in control anymore. Miles stood pale, silent eyes, darting like a trapped animal. Nash ordered everyone to stay put, then knelt beside me. You're safe now, she whispered. I wanted to believe her, but my body shook so violently I thought my bones might splinter. They escorted Mom and Miles out separately. I sat on the bed, gasping, feeling like I might float away. When the EMTs arrived, they examined my arm. A faint red dot where the needle had grazed my skin. Close. Too close. At the ER, Dr. Leora Kimura documented everything, photographing the marks, ordering blood tests and scans. She spoke gently, but her questions stabbed deeper than any needle. Has she given you medication before? For how long? Do you know what it was? I told her about the pills, the dizziness, the way Mom claimed I had a learning disability. Her expression shifted from professional concern to quiet horror. She ordered hair and urine samples, muttering about long-term exposure and criminal charges. By morning, my body felt like it had been wrung dry. But then, a woman named Leandra McGuire from the university appeared carrying a folder thick with papers, a case manager. She explained Mom had forged withdrawal forms, claiming I was mentally unfit to attend. She helped me file a FERPA block to cut off Mom's access to my records. For the first time, I felt a sliver of control return. Later, an attorney named Lana Felt arrived. Sharp eyes, fast notes, no sugarcoating. We need to document everything she said. Every pill, every threat, every scar. She spoke like she'd been here before, like she'd seen families eat their children alive. But that night alone, in a sterile hospital bed, I stared at the ceiling tiles and thought about how close I'd come. 1 second later, one hesitation longer, and Mom would have pressed the plunger. Ask yourself, what would you do if the person who gave you life tried to erase your mind in front of your brother? Would you still call her Mom? I closed my eyes and tried not to picture the clear liquids sliding into my veins. Detective Lucinda Bridges looked older than the word detective made me expect. Her gray-streaked hair was tied back, her eyes heavy as if she'd seen too many stories like mine and no longer trusted happy endings. She set her recorder on the table and nodded at me. Start from the beginning, she said. So I did. My voice cracked, stumbled, but the words tumbled out. The pills, the labels, the farmhouse, the needle. Every sentence felt like dragging barbed wire out of my chest. She scribbled notes, pausing only to ask dates, times, names. You said she pulled you out of school in 3rd grade? Yes. And the pills started soon after I nodded. She called them medicine, said they were for my condition. Detective Bridges' pen scratched faster. We'll need every detail, even the ones that don't feel important. Important. How do you measure importance when your entire childhood was curated like a grotesque science experiment? After 2 hours, my throat felt raw, but she didn't let me stop. When I faltered, she encouraged me with the kind of patience that felt almost dangerous because patience meant she believed me. Later in my dorm, I found Mom's emails waiting. Long, rambling messages about the ecosystem. She wrote like a scientist, filing reports how Natalie's intelligence relied on my stupidity, how Eden's beauty had to stand in contrast to my plainness, how Miles' strength came from protecting the weak one. She claimed my rebellion was destroying the balance, that I was dismantling the family's design. Reading those words, I shook so badly my laptop slipped off my knees. I forwarded them all to Lana, who emailed back instantly, save every single one. They're evidence. But evidence felt hollow. Evidence didn't stop the shaking when I walked to class, eyes flicking over my shoulder every few seconds. Evidence didn't keep me from flinching at footsteps in the hallway, convinced Mom was in disguise, waiting. Dr. Kimura's calls became anchors. She explained my blood work showed sedatives in my system, but she wanted long-term proof. Hair analysis, urine testing, oral swabs, all of it. If this timeline confirms what you've described, she said gently, it could support poisoning charges. Poisoning. The word made me dizzy. I'd been poisoned for years by the person who tucked me into bed. Meanwhile, Leandra walked me through campus protections. No contact orders, safety alerts. Professors discreetly informed about my situation. It all sounded reassuring until I realized how fragile it was. Paper shields. Boundaries only respected if Mom chose to respect them. That week, whispers started on campus. Someone had posted on a forum calling me mentally unstable, accusing me of lying about abuse. Then came the doxing, my dorm address plastered online. Security responded with extra patrols, ID checks at doors. But it felt like fire creeping toward my room, impossible to contain. One night, I sat on my bed, hands shaking as I read a message in our sibling code. Eden. She's worse. Watching every bite I eat. Natalie. She burned another sketch. Said art was stealing my brain. Miles. Don't answer if she finds you. Don't make it worse. The guilt pressed heavier than the walls around me. I was safe for now. But they were still trapped in the farmhouse, enduring punishments crafted like rituals. And Mom's shadow stretched long enough to reach even here, slipping notes under my door, infecting my inbox. Ask yourself, if the world only listens once you have bruises, what do you call the scars no one sees? That night, I lay awake and realized the truth. Ghosts don't haunt houses. They haunt inboxes, textbooks, and the way you flinch at kindness. And my ghost still had my last name. The envelope was ordinary, white smudged, the kind of thing you'd almost throw away without opening. Miles had scribbled only one word on the sticky note stuck to the front evidence. Inside was a thumb drive. My stomach flipped as I slid it into my laptop. 4 PDFs opened. My breath caught when I saw them. Our birth certificates. Except they weren't just certificates anymore. Mom had taken her pen, neat cursive, like the handwriting teachers once praised, and written in the margins where doctors usually list conditions or notations. Natalie Smart One. Exceptional cognitive function. Eden Pretty One. Aesthetic priority. Miles Strong One. Physical dominance required. Mine Dumb One. Severely limited capacity. She had written our fates in black ink and filed them away like medical diagnoses. My hands shook so badly I dropped the mouse. For a second I thought I might vomit. It wasn't just memory, now it was proof. Premeditated. Documented. She had institutionalized her delusions on legal paper. I printed them, the warm sheets sliding out one by one, trembling in my hands. Then I ran straight to Lana's office. She stared at the pages, color draining from her face. This is premeditated abuse, documented from birth, she whispered. In 20 years, I've never seen anything this blatant. Her words should have comforted me. Instead, they hollowed me out. Because proof doesn't erase damage, it only shines a brighter light on it. Meanwhile, Eden texted me from urgent care. She had fainted again, too weak to stand during Mom's newest starvation schedule. Doctors had weighed her, asked questions. Mom had answered for her. She's stressed her troubled sister abandoned us. The lie slid from her mouth as naturally as breathing. Eden said the doctor looked suspicious, but didn't push Mom's authority carried weight, and Eden's silence made it believable. Detective Bridges added this to the growing pile. Then came another call. A neighbor from near the farmhouse had come forward. She'd heard screaming for years, seen medical supply trucks unloading strange deliveries. Mom had told everyone we'd died in a fire, but this neighbor had always wondered. Piece by piece, the mask was cracking. We also filed a complaint with the state medical board against Dr. Benson. Even the rumor of private procedures was enough to spark investigation. His carefully worded denials felt more like confessions. No formal consultations, no scheduled appointments. Words polished like glass hiding a knife. Then came the guardianship hearing. Mom had filed for emergency custody over me, claiming I was profoundly impaired. The judge, to his credit, appointed an independent evaluator instead of the doctor Mom wanted. The evaluation took 3 hours. Math problems, reading comprehension, reasoning tasks. My hands shook, but I answered every question. I showed my GED certificate, my acceptance letter. The evaluator's face shifted from skepticism to shock. Your mother claims you have the capacity of a young child, she said softly. I slid the birth certificate across the table, pointing at her neat cursive dumb one's severely limited capacity. The evaluator didn't hide her disgust. She took careful notes, eyes flicking between me and the paper like she couldn't decide which part horrified her more. When I left, the courthouse hallway felt endless. Every step echoed like footsteps behind me. I kept thinking Mom wasn't content to tell us who we were. She had to carve it into paper, into law, into history. Ask yourself, if your own mother wrote your obituary while you were still alive, how long before you believed it? The courthouse smelled like old paper and disinfectant. When I walked into the evaluation room, my palms were slick, my heart racing. I kept expecting Mom to burst through the door, syringe in hand, insisting I was too dumb to be here. The evaluator was a woman in her 50s, kind but clinical. She asked me to read passages aloud, solve math problems, explain abstract concepts. My voice shook at first, but the longer I spoke, the steadier I became. I finished my GED, I said, sliding the certificate across the table. And I was accepted into state. Her eyebrows shot up. Your mother's petition says you can't read beyond a 2nd grade level. I pulled out the acceptance letter from my folder, the paper creased from how many times I'd unfolded it, just to reassure myself it was real. Her face softened as she studied it. When the session ended, she leaned forward. I'll need time to finalize my report, she said carefully, but I can tell you this much, you are fully competent. Your mother's claims are deeply concerning. For the first time in years, I felt the floor steady beneath me. The court denied Mom's emergency guardianship. On paper, I was free, but reality isn't written in ink. That night, I returned to my dorm to find a folded piece of paper shoved under my door. Dumb girls who run away get hurt. The handwriting was hers. I knew the way she looped her letters, the flourish on the D. My hands shook as I called campus security. Officer Nash arrived, jaw tightening when she read it. She's escalating, Nash said. The next morning, my backpack felt heavier than usual. Something was wrong. I dumped everything onto my bed, textbooks, pens, laptop. And then I felt it. A small hard lump sewn into the lining. I cut the stitching open and pulled out a GPS tracker. My stomach dropped. She had been inside my dorm. Again. Detective Bridges collected it, gloves snapping as she sealed it into evidence. We'll run it for prints. In the meantime, this adds stalking to her charges. but charges felt like whispers compared to the roar of fear in my head. Every footstep behind me on campus made my chest seize. Every creak in the hallway sounded like her. I tried to reclaim something normal by re-enrolling part-time. Psychology and English composition. 2 classes. Just enough to remind myself why I fought so hard to escape. On the first day, I sat in the front row. My hands shook when I raised them to answer a question, but when the professor nodded and said, "Excellent point," I nearly cried. No slap, no punishment, just acknowledgement. But even in that moment, I felt the shadow. Years of hunching to look small, years of pills to make me forget. My body didn't know how to trust safety. Ask yourself, how do you prove competence in a world built on your mother's lies? A certificate, a letter, an evaluator's nod. None of it silences the voice in your head, whispering, "You're still the dumb one." The news came in fragments. Texts in our secret code, hushed phone calls at night, when I pressed a pillow against the door to muffle my voice. Eden was first. She'd been caught with a hidden phone, and Mom went berserk, screaming about betrayal, ripping the device apart with her bare hands. Eden ran, just grabbed a bag and bolted. She called me hours later from a women's shelter crying, but lighter somehow, her voice freed from the leash. "I can breathe," she whispered. "For the first time in years, I can actually eat without someone counting the bites." I held the phone so tight my knuckles whitened. Relief tangled with guilt. I was here free while she'd only just escaped the starvation cage. Mom, of course, tried to reclaim control. She called the police, reported Eden as a kidnapped runaway, claimed I'd brainwashed her. But Detective Bridges confirmed what mattered. Eden was an adult she had left willingly. Another mark against Mom's credibility, another lie unraveling. Miles was slower. His body broke before his will did. Mom had forced him into a training session carrying 200-pound loads up and down stairs until something tore in his knee. At urgent care, the doctor said he'd need surgery, months of recovery. Miles called me that night, voice cracking. "I can't do it anymore," he admitted. "She wants me strong, but I can barely walk. I'm supposed to protect everyone, but I can't even protect myself." I wanted to tell him it wasn't his job to protect anyone, but the words caught. Because hadn't I relied on him too? Hadn't we all? Natalie stayed longest. Mom threatened her hands, said if she ever testified against her, she'd never paint again. Natalie sent me drawings anyway, sketches on scrap paper she hid in library books. Shaky, unfinished, but proof that her hands still belonged to her. Meanwhile, Mom escalated her war against me. She sent cousins to call old family friends to reason with me. She posted online, under fake accounts, spinning tales about her mentally impaired daughter who'd abandoned her siblings. She even created a website, Help Bring Leia Home, filled with lies about my supposed disability. Lana told me not to respond. Every word she writes is evidence, she said. Still, it cut deep. Seeing your own face on a missing person flyer, labeled as incapable, dangerous, delusional, it makes you question reality all over again. Then came the hair analysis results. Dr. Kimura called me herself, voice low careful. The test confirmed prolonged exposure to sedatives, at least 4 years. Levels consistent with deliberate administration, not medical necessity. My blood ran cold. Proof. Science. Saying what I already knew, I'd been drugged into stupidity. That night, I couldn't stop shaking. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, wondering if my whole identity had been built on chemicals poured down my throat. Was I truly intelligent? Or was every thought just resistance against sedation? Ask yourself if your mother poisoned your mind for years. Who are you once the drugs wear off? I was walking across campus when I saw her. The disguise was almost laughable. Cheap wig, oversized sunglasses, a bulky coat. But you don't grow up under someone's thumb without memorizing the rhythm of their walk, the tilt of their head when they're hunting. My stomach dropped. "Mom." Her hand dipped into her bag, slow and deliberate, and every nerve in my body screamed, "Run." Instead, I texted Officer Nash one word, "Here." Then I forced my feet toward the security office, pretending not to notice the predator closing in. She got closer. 10 feet. 5. I could almost smell the sharp, sterile scent of her medicine bag. My vision tunneled, legs threatening to give out. Then Nash appeared like a wall between us. "Ma'am, step back." Mom's voice shifted instantly into her performance register, concerned maternal. "I'm just a worried parent checking on my daughter." Nash didn't blink. "You're in violation of a no trespass order. Hands where I can see them." For a heartbeat, I thought Mom might lunge. Then backup arrived, and Nash's handcuffs clicked around her wrists. The scream Mom let out, it wasn't human. It was rage made flesh. "She's destroying the family ecosystem," she shrieked, struggling against the officers. "You don't understand she's sick?" But no one listened. For once, no one listened. I stood frozen, trembling so violently my knees nearly buckled. Watching her dragged away, I didn't feel victory. I felt exposed raw. Because if she could find me here dressed in a wig and coat, what stopped her from finding me anywhere? Later, Detective Bridges told me the arrest was a gift for our case. Proof Mom couldn't respect boundaries. "This will help in court," she said. "Help in court." But courtrooms don't erase the smell of her perfume clinging to your hair or the sound of her keys rattling as she walks the hallway at night. Courtrooms don't stop nightmares. That night, I lay in bed with every light on, waiting for the door to rattle. Ask yourself, when the monster is your mother, does watching her in handcuffs feel like justice, or just the start of another round? The courtroom was too quiet. Not reverent quiet, predatory. Like everyone was holding their breath, waiting for someone to crack. Mom sat at the other table, immaculate as always. Navy suit hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She carried herself like a doctor testifying in her own defense, calm, rational, untouchable. If not for the handcuffs I'd seen weeks earlier, I might have doubted myself all over again. When it was my turn to speak, my voice wavered. She drugged me for years, I said, holding up the lab results Dr. Kimura had prepared. She told the world I was too stupid to learn while feeding me sedatives that made me feel like my brain was underwater. The judge flipped through photographs marks on my arms from the syringe night, the emails Mom had sent about the ecosystem, the threats scribbled on paper shoved under my door. His jaw tightened the further he read. Mom leaned forward, her voice smooth. Your Honor, my daughter has always struggled. She creates delusions when she feels out of control. I've devoted my life to caring for her special needs. The words made bile rise in my throat. Special needs. She weaponized those words like shackles. Then Bridges presented the thumb drive our birth certificates with Mom's handwritten labels. Premeditated abuse, Lana called it. Roles imposed from birth, reinforced with drugs and punishments. The judge's face changed. He didn't look at me anymore like a trembling, confused girl. He looked at Mom like she was the predator in a white coat. When the ruling came, my body shook so hard I barely heard the words 3-year restraining order. No contact through third parties. No online harassment. No exceptions for family events. 500 feet of distance enforced by law. It should have felt like freedom. Instead, all I could think was how quickly she'd find the edges to press against. She always did. Walking out of the courthouse, I told myself to breathe. Paper wasn't armor, but it was something. Ask yourself, when the law finally believes you, does that mean you're safe or just living inside a bigger cage with thicker bars? The restraining order should have ended things. But Mom's war didn't stop, it just shifted fronts. Weeks later, Lana spread papers across her office table, her red pen darting like a surgeon's scalpel. She's suing you, she said flatly. Defamation, emotional distress. She's demanding you recant your delusions publicly. I laughed. Hi, Brittle. She poisons me for years, threatens me with a syringe, and now I'm the liar. That's exactly the strategy, Lana replied. She wants to flip the narrative. To make you the aggressor, her the victim. My stomach dropped. Because wasn't that what she always did? The courtroom filled for the anti-slap motion. I sat stiff while Mom's lawyer painted her as a grieving mother, her reputation shredded by a daughter who fabricated abuse. He used words like hysterical fantasist, ungrateful. When Lana rose, her voice cut through like glass. She held up the blood work, the emails, the doxing screenshots, the GPS tracker sewn into my backpack. She projected Mom's birth certificate notes onto the courtroom screen. Dumb one, severely limited capacity. Gasps rippled through the room. The judge leaned back, expression hardening. His ruling was swift lawsuit, dismissed. Mom ordered to pay my legal fees. This was retaliation, he said, and harassment plain and simple. For once, the system agreed. Yet walking out, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hunted. Because predators lash hardest when cornered. That night, I got a voicemail from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. Your mom's devastated. Why are you dragging her name through the mud? The next morning, old family friends called my dorm, pleading, guilt-tripping, twisting the knife. She wasn't calling me herself anymore. She was weaponizing everyone else. And still the evidence mounted. The police search of the farmhouse uncovered notebooks filled with her ecosystem doctrine prescription bottles, with no patients' names, tracking devices lined up like soldiers. Bridges called it a horror show on paper. But evidence doesn't erase blood ties. Evidence doesn't stop the phone from ringing at 2 a.m. with a blocked number. Ask yourself, what do you do when the war isn't just with your mother, but with the gravity of your entire family pulling you back into orbit? Detective Bridges called early in the morning. Her voice was brisk, professional, but I caught the undercurrent of something darker. We've got the warrant. We're searching the farmhouse today. Is there anything specific we should look for? My throat tightened. I pictured the rooms I'd memorized like a prisoner memorizes her cell. The filing cabinet in her bedroom, I whispered. She keeps charts there tracking us. And a locked box under her bed. That's where she hides the pills. Hours later, Bridges called back. We found more than we expected. When she showed me the evidence photos, my stomach lurched. Tables covered in syringes, unmarked vials, medical notebooks stacked in piles. Detailed ledgers of our progress notes on how to reinforce our roles pages, where my name appeared again and again, underlined stupid, limited compliant. There were 17 tracking devices still in their packaging, lined up like trophies. Emails printed out between mom and doctor. Benson, clinical discussions about cognitive adjustment procedures for problem children. Receipts for medical equipment no family should own. Seeing it all laid out with evidence tags didn't bring relief. It brought nausea. Because it proved what I'd always feared, none of it was exaggeration. None of it was my imagination. She'd been building an empire of control, cataloged with surgical precision. They arrested her at a motel that night. The mugshot appeared online the next morning, her eyes blazing with rage, her mouth set in that thin smile she wore when she thought she'd win anyway. Part of me wanted to frame it proof the monster was real. Another part wanted to smash the screen because even in chains she looked untouchable. Miles was questioned next. Bridges told me they weren't pressing charges against him. He was coerced. Another victim. Still, when I heard his voice on the phone, thick with guilt, I couldn't answer right away. He'd held me down. He'd chosen her. Or maybe he hadn't had a choice at all. Eden gave her statement detailing years of forced starvation and pills. Natalie sent in a declaration about her paintings, destroyed one after another until her hands shook too much to hold a brush. Piece by piece, the truth was being told aloud. But instead of feeling lighter, I felt heavier, like every word dragged the past back into the room with us. Because evidence may convict, but it doesn't cleanse. Ask yourself what happens when the proof of your survival looks more like a crime scene than a childhood. If you've made it all the way here, leave a comment. I really enjoy reading what you share.